In this session, we're going to go ahead and get started working with the SimpleSeps Raster plugin. I know in our last session we did the introduction. This session we're going to separate something very high-end. I've got here a pinup girl photograph set up in CorelDRAW. We've knocked out the background. You can see the page behind. Here, this is all transparent. When you're going to separate something like this, especially if you're going to go on a dark garment, you're really going to need to knock that out because you're going to end up with white base in all the area where there's white pixels, and you won't want that. But I've already knocked that out. For this tutorial, we're just going to take a look at getting started with separating. And with this particular separation, it's not going to go all the way through and be perfectly completed. We're going to encounter a small issue, and we'll show you how to deal with that. And we really want to show you how to not just use the separation application, but how to deal with some of the issues that you'll encounter when you're doing separations. Now here, with this image, something I would have never imagined being able to color separate in CorelDRAW. I'm going to do this literally in a matter of 3 or 4 minutes. First thing I'll do is I'll come up here and I'm going to change my page size to 13 by 19. And then I'm just going to go ahead and change this to a landscape. What did I do here? I went 13 by 13. I want to go 13 by 19. Not 3, 9. Hit enter. Change this to a landscape. You can see that this graphic is about 12 inches wide. It's approximately 140 dpi. I might want to do some tweaking on this. I'll go in here and take a look and see what we're dealing with. This looks really clean. There is some artifacts here from the JPEGing process. To deal with that, I'll go ahead and I'll go to bitmap and I'll go to edit bitmap and open that up in Corel Photo Paint. Once my graphics is open with Photo Paint, I'm going to go ahead and change my image resolution. So I'll go to Image Resample. We're going to go all the way up to, let's say, 600 dpi because I want to apply an effect. And when you apply blur effects at higher resolution, you get less destruction than you do at the lower resolutions because your pixels are smaller. Now this is quite big. It's also quite clean. As you can see, this will be just fine. The next thing I want to do is just simply go to Effects, then I'll go to Blur, and I'm going to select Smart Blur. And I'm going to let that process, and we'll see what it does here as we're zoomed in here. You can see that just kind of smooths things out a little bit. And I want to check and make sure I don't have too much on her face there. We'll bring that back down to about 70%. And we'll slide this back down to about 50% and see how that looks. And we're just kind of softening the image up to give it a little bit of an artistic look. You know, you're going to lose a little bit of detail, no doubt about it, but that's detail you're never going to be able to hold with a 55 LPI halftone dot anyway when you go to press. But I just want to clean this out a little bit and smooth it up. Give it a little bit of a painted look also at the same time. We'll let that process. And then we're going to go back to Image, and we're going to go to Resample again, and we're going to go down to 300 dpi. And select OK and let that process. And that'll take just a minute. Sometimes you're doing the resampling in Photo Paint, I believe you get better results than Draw, but it seems to take a little bit longer in the process. Very often when I'm fixing things or prepping things, I'll do it in Photo Paint as opposed to Draw because Photo Paint is obviously a raster application, whereas Draw is a mix of raster and vector. And then once that's finished processing, I'm going to go ahead and save my image, and you can see that we did get quite a bit of clean up in here. We did lose some detail, but that's some detail we wouldn't have held in the screen printing process anyway, and it looks a little bit more like something that's been painted. Now if I wanted to, I could really make this look like a painting, like a painted pinup girl working with this photo, working with some of the filters available in Photo Paint. But we'll go ahead with this here for now. I'll just go ahead and click on Save, and we'll process that back into Draw. And then I'll go ahead and open Draw, and I can see I've got my image here. So we'll go ahead and close that, and we'll go ahead and close Photo Paint because we don't want to have that open when we start to run our color separation process. One thing we don't want is we don't want Photo Paint open while we're processing our separations out of SimpleSeps Raster, it can cause an issue and it can cause the application photo paint being active or running can cause the application to crash. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go to Advanced Tools, and then I'm going to go to SimpleSeps Raster. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here, click on General Separations, and I'm going to select HSB Extract so we can take a look at what we're dealing with color-wise here. We'll let that process. Once SimpleSeps Raster is finished processing our HSB extraction, the next thing for me is going to be to do some evaluation of the results. First thing I'm going to do is come over here and take a look, and I can already see I've got an issue here in my blue. It's a little bit dark in here, but we'll be able to address that after we convert our separations. But I can see that's what I'm dealing with. I'm going to go to my Object Manager here and see if there's anything else I need to be aware of. I'll turn off my brightness. Just click in the eye. I'm also going to turn off my saturation. You can see that this blue in here is pretty dark. We got a lot of that color, and some of this is coming from the JPEG destruction that happens when these objects are compressed, and you can see how these look. Now this looks bad when you zoom on the pixels, but after we generate the separations and we get the saturation and brightness back in the image, it can all be dealt with. There's the colors of the flesh, as you can see there, etc. But you notice that this looks kind of messy, but if we put our brightness back on, you can see that pretty much all just goes away. One of the other beautiful things about this extraction method is we can see what we're dealing with from image destruction in JPEGs, but we can also see that working through the HSB method, we're able to repair a lot of that just by bringing our brightness and saturation back together with our hue when we do our separations. Let's take a look at our saturation, and we can see that knocks out a lot of what's going on in the clouds here. But we can see that blue is a little bit too strong, but the rest of this is basically perfect. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and generate my actual separations, and then I'll make some tweaks after I generate the separations on my different separation plates. One of the things you want to be aware of when you're running SimpleSeps Raster, you don't want Corel Photo Paint running at the same time. It can cause issues. Another thing you want to be aware of is that you can check to see if you do experience a crash, if Corel Photo Paint is running in the background on your computer and you're not even aware of it. That's one of the things with the Corel applications I've often encountered is you'll find them running in the background. They're not even your workspace, but they're actually running. If you go to Control-Alt-Delete all three of them on your keyboard, you'll get a window to pop up, and you can select Start Task Manager, and you can look in your Applications tab to see if Corel Photo Paint is running in the background. It's not. I don't think you need to do this every time, but if you ever do experience a crash, you can definitely go take a look in your process and see if Corel Photo Paint is actually running in the background on your system. Once again, that's Control-Alt-Delete, go to Processes, and you can change your image names here alphabetically, and then just come down. You can see that Corel or Corel PP is running. Here we can see that Corel is running. Go ahead and close this. I'm going to go back to my SimpleSeps Raster, and I'm just going to click on Generate Separations, and we'll process our HSB SimpleSeps Raster color separations directly in CorelDRAW. Now, one of the things you will notice when we're doing our color separation process with SimpleSeps Raster, you may notice Photo Paint opening up and closing, and what's happening at that point in time is we're going out of CorelDRAW into Corel Photo Paint to process our monochrome bitmap so we get perfect tonal values back in our color separations for our monochrome bitmap. So the best thing to do when you're running SimpleSeps Raster really is to not touch anything on your computer and just let it go through the separation process. And you can see right there opened up Photo Paint and it's doing a process. And then it's taking that back into CorelDRAW. As I said, what we're doing is we're processing the transparencies required for perfectly matching tonal values in the grayscales of our separations in those monochrome bitmaps. So what we're looking for is where it's 100% black, it's 100% gray. Where it's 10% black, it's 10% gray. We weren't able to do that directly in Draw, so we actually go out to Photo Paint to process these and come back in. You can see the nature and complexity of the programming that was associated with this particular plugin. I mean, here we are going out of Draw into Photo Paint, automating all kinds of things, literally thousands of steps to create these perfect color separations or close to perfect color separations, literally in a matter of minutes here in CorelDRAW, and working with Corel Photo Paint to process our transparent images that are then converted to monochrome bitmaps directly in CorelDRAW. Once SimpleSeps Raster has finished processing my color separations, I'll go ahead and close the plugin. I'll be able to evaluate my color separations. And this is a very high-end design. It's going to be a 6 or 7 color print. Even if you're going on a dark garment, you might end up with 8 or 9 colors. But I wanted to start out with some very high-end color separation to show how easy this is to do in CorelDRAW compared to the other things that have been available throughout the history of the industry. I'm going to zoom in here and take a look at what's going on here. We've got our color gamut or color wheel going around the outside of the graphic here. That's so we get a visual representation of our color separations on the monitor, and we're not just working with these little eyes in CorelDRAW. One of the things you want to be aware of is that the object manager in CorelDRAW is very buggy, and we'll want to move out of that as quickly as possible, and I'll show you how we do that here in a minute. But first I want to go ahead and evaluate some things. Here I've got my black, here I've got my white highlight, and we can see when we look at this now that this blue is very strong. I'm going to want to deal with that, and I'll show you how to deal with that very easily here in just a minute. Here we've got magenta, and I think we can go without that. Here we've got our blues. We're definitely going to need those. Here we've got our cyan. Definitely going to need that. Could almost do without it. Depends on what you want to do with that blue, but you could almost do without the cyan. And then come down here, we've got our green. Definitely going to need that. Then we've got our yellow. Definitely going to need that. Could almost do without it, but we're definitely going to need it. And then we've got our red. Then we've got our white underbase here, and you can see how that affects. And you can do some tweaks with that if you're going to go on to dark garments. Then we've got our garment color here, or background color. And then we've got this color wheel here. Now I'm not going to need a white underbase. I'm going to carry the white highlight because very often I'll use it in the separation process, kind of to knock back some of the darkness in the design. What I want to do is go ahead and move this out of this particular page at this time and get away from all of these objects in the object manager and simplify the way in which I'm going to work with this. I'll hit Control C. Then I'll just come here and I'll set up a new page. I'll change this to 13 by 19, and all I'm going to do is just copy. I hit Control C, and that's going to let me paste that back in here. And then I'll change this to a landscape. Now I can just simply hit Control V, and that'll paste that in to this new document. Now you can see all I've just got is layer 1, and I've got my different labeled objects here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Group. That'll turn into a group of 7 objects. First thing I want to do is go ahead and crop. So just get my crop tool, and I'll just left click, hold down, and drag around here, and we'll just get this to where it's pretty close. We don't want to cut any of our separation pages here. Double click on that, and that'll crop everything. And then we're going to deal with the issue that we have in our blue here very quickly. And you can see I'm working with photographic realistic color separation set up as monochrome bitmaps now. I could take these through SimpleSeps and output to halftones if I was happy with it, but I want to fix this area here. Now I can tell that that's in my blue the way it looks there, and I can come here to the blue monochrome, and just to verify that I'll hit cut and knock that out of there, and I can see that's where that strength is there. I'll hit Control Z, that'll put that back. To fix it, I'm going to go to my advanced tools. I'm going to go to SimpleSeps Raster. I'm going to come here and I'm going to go to monochrome revert. I'm going to bring this back to a grayscale image. Go ahead and click on that. Go ahead and close this. Now you can see that I've got this blue here that's been converted back to a grayscale. Kind of messed up my separations, but not really. Next thing I want to do is take this blue and just select it over here in my object manager, because I know what it is, and then I'll go to Edit Bitmap, and that'll open that in Corel Photo Paint. I'm going to make a quick adjustment here. All I want to do is just bring down the intensity of this area of blue. So I'll come up here and I'll get my freehand mask. Just go ahead and left click, and I'll just lasso around all of those areas here in this color separation. Very easy and quick fix. Now I got some stuff there I didn't want to get, but we can take care of it. Now just double click here. Now I know I got some stuff here I didn't want to get, so I want to go to subtractive mode up here and just kind of come in here and go ahead and lasso that. Now here all I'm going to need to do is kind of soften this up, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Effects, just give that a hint of blur, not a lot, just enough to knock some of the edge off of it, and select OK. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Adjust, I'm going to go to Tone Curve, and I'm just simply going to pull from the center out here to the left and bring that down in strength right about there and select OK. I'm going to go to Mask and Remove. There'll be a nice little tweak right there, and then just hit Save. And that'll bring that grayscale bitmap back into CorelDRAW, and then I'll go ahead and close this. Now that I've got this set up here, the next thing I want to do is go back to my Advanced Tools. I want to go to my SimpleSeps Raster, and this is how easy we make this for you. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Monochrome Convert, and that'll go out and bring back my image. Now I'll have to rename it and put it back in place after I get it back. And now I've got it back. Now I want to go ahead and minimize this. I want to go to this group of 6 objects, and now you can see I've got this new monochrome bitmap here on top, and that is my blue. I'll come up here and click on a blue, and you can see how that worked out. Now that still looks like it's kind of strong, but all I need to do is just left click and drag that back down beneath my black here. Now I see I can't do this in this group, so I'm going to select this group. I'm going to come up here and select Ungroup All. Then I'm going to take this bitmap, and it still looks a little bit strong, but I left click, hold down, and drag it down here beneath the white, and now it looks fine, and we've made that adjustment. All I need to do is go ahead now, so I know what this bitmap is. I'll click on this, and I'll change this to BLUE Monochrome. Change the name of it, just so I know what it is. And now my design would be ready to go to separations. Now in CorelDRAW, because it's a monochrome, I can convert this to Pantone colors or spot colors and put it out through SimpleSeps. Let's go ahead and go up here to SimpleSeps, not SimpleSeps Raster, but SimpleSeps, Color Management, Create Palette from Selection. I can see I've got 7 colors here with the white. All I got to do from SimpleSeps is just go ahead and actually I'll just click on Select All, and I'll do a one-click conversion. Now your Pantones don't look as good rendered in CorelDRAW on a monitor as do your RGB colors. But I'll just go to one-click conversion, select OK. Now I'm down to all spot colors. Now like I said, that doesn't look as good as it should. Now if I wanted to overprint at this point, I could do that in a number of different things. Then I could go here to Separations, simply click on Generate Separations. Now one of the things you want to be aware of is what are your different colors here, as you can see right there. Now we've got a color palette that will tell us what the different colors are that will be generated by SimpleSeps, and that is here. I believe this is the palette plate. This is all of the colors, spot colors in the design. Right here, red, yellow, green, and we've got our Pantone blue, and we've got our white and our Pantone hexachrome black. Now you want to be aware of this palettes plate when you're working with SimpleSeps, so that after you create your separations and you look at those Pantone numbers, you'll have something to reference them by. Now go ahead over here and we'll click on Generate Separations, select OK, and we'll process these. Now I could convert these to halftones at this time, but that takes a little bit of time when we're doing that rasterizing. I didn't want to do that here in the video because we've got 7 pages of very large bitmaps. But now I can look at this and I can say, okay, what is this? This is the Pantone 1788C. I can come up here. This is the Pantone 1788C. I know what this is. This is my red. The next plate is Pantone 3945. I can come up here. 3945 is the yellow, as you can see, and it corresponds throughout the separation. So here I've gone in a very short period of time from a very high-end photographic image to live high-end color separations directly set up as pages in CorelDRAW that I can review, convert to halftones, or send out to another rip if I have one, and then set up on press. So we can see how we work with the SimpleSeps Raster to do the things that everybody previously thought were impossible directly in CorelDRAW. And of course, after I've set up my separations, if I wanted to add some text to this, let's say the customer wanted to arch some text across the top, I could do that very easily. So go ahead and wrap here, and we'll continue in our next session.